could not be sustained within me. And they were coming out of the scarring that every woman has from being told that we are worthless. That we are nothing because we are women. Simply because we are women, and being a woman is nothing. Unfortunately, that has been a huge bulk of history all over the world for many women, for millions of women. Sorry about that. I almost dropped my phone. Since the beginning of time, I was reading this thing of, these people, like the skeletons that they found, these ancient skeletons they found in I believe it was in the U.S. I believe it was here in the U.S. And there were they knew that there was an extremely violent time or extremely violent society, towards women, because there was a lot of evidence on the women's skeletons of abuse, and inflicted abuse, not like accidents or anything, but like bludgeons and rapes and possible rapes and things like that, being beaten up. So this has been a reality for women, being overtaken by the physically more strong force, and then couple that with the fear and jealousy of women's power. There has been this reality of violence, this legacy of violence towards women. And even if that doesn't happen necessarily to a woman in their life, certainly psychologically and spiritually and emotionally, that assault is there constantly. And so in a way, that doubt that comes up, especially when you like, let's say I knew that I was physically pregnant. I had been pregnant twice before. I knew what it was and what it was like. But all my scars started to just come to the surface. And that's part of the process. That's part of the process is letting those scars come to the surface. Am I going to live with these scars and live on land all of my life and never venture into the ocean, a dog paddle in the shallows all of my life? Or am I gonna call upon my boat and my rope, and am I gonna dive down deep into the depths, and I'm gonna pray at the ocean, pray to love, to God, whatever it is you say, your intuition, to enlighten you, to become more aware of who you really are. And so much of alternative healing and what I do is about vibration. If something is the right vibration, it can bring things to order again, the way they should be. And a lot of dogma in the cryptic pregnancy movement is that you're not allowed to say certain things. You're censored about saying certain things. But the other reality is that we attack each other. So it's not that we're just stating our viewpoint or just saying, like, I don't wish to offend anybody, but I have a hard time with this, or making it, your reality rather than imposing it upon everybody else. There's an attacking thing going on. And it's understandable in some ways, because women are afraid. Women are just as afraid or more afraid than men, or the masculine reality in this world, of our power. If we discover our power, then what? We lose our husbands, possibly. We lose our friends, possibly. People can't deal with that power. But the thing is, if we don't come into our power, then nobody can. Other women are depending upon women who are given this chance, who are dog paddling out in shallow waters, and then we go a little too deep you know, and we don't know that we're going too little too deep, and all of a sudden we're pulled under. All of a sudden we're actually come upon exactly what we've been wanting all this time, unconsciously, you know, subconsciously. And it is our chance as women to say, okay, there it is. There's my fear. There's my scars. There's all of my pain. There's my ancestors' pain. There's my mother's pain that she inflicted upon me. There's my husband's pain, my brother's pain, my, society, media, masculine, man-dominated society, there's all of it right there, all that scarring, and going down deep, being pulled down deep under like that, is bringing that all to the surface. And as you know, I've been reading Women Who Run with Wolves, and she's a contadora, which is a keeper of stories. And I've actually was raised in the reality that in the teaching that storytelling is vibrationally and deeply and psychologically a roadmap back to our real selves. Stories have within them the archetypes as symbols that hold the vibrations to bring everything back in order. And so when you understand them and you learn how to analyze them, and I've learned this from a very early age, and Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who wrote Women Who Run with Wolves, is just taking me even deeper into that reality. But she says that one of the things that we need to do is not just to, our psyche, our greater consciousness is guiding us to that place that is all scarred, that is hidden, that is buried, that we don't want to deal with. The reality of the pain in the history of women. And she said it's not just about discovering that place or having it rise to the surface, but can we stand what we see? If we can stand there and stand what we see and call upon our intuition, call upon the power of who we are, who we want to discover, call upon the symbolism, whatever symbolism that helps you, whether it's, calling upon, God and your intuition and love, first to ground you, and then calling upon that symbolism, of a women, women power, women mystery, such as Joan of Arc or Mulan, who is the ancient Chinese legend woman warrior. A lot of people know her from the Disney character, but she's not a Disney character. She's a legend, much like Joan of Arc, a woman warrior who went in place of her father. Joan of Arc went because she felt called by God to lead an army, the French army, when she was 16, I believe. I believe Mulan was around that age too. Or there's the goddesses, the symbols of the goddesses, the symbols of mermaids and queens and princesses that overcame evil. Evil in the stories, So much of modern age has thrown those stories out, and I remember growing up and learning and knowing that stories are archetypes, are symbols, and they hold powerful vibrations of teaching, powerful vibrations of the pathway home to who we really are through these archetypes, through these symbols, through these characters, and the things that happen to those characters. And there are so many women who, true stories, legends, who reflect human experience and reflect divine experience. Divine reality, I should say. So the divine reality is the love, the consistency, the true love, the intuitive sense, the wild self, whatever you want to call it, the higher self, the cosmic reality. And then there is the human experience, which is the power of overcoming evil, overcoming jealousy, doubt, violence, through tapping into that true place, that real place. So I had, 2 cryptic pregnancies that came to pass. 2 children are here. They're both healthy. They're both healthy at birth, And I have to say that I felt very much, I use my kinesiology tools, my testing tools, to really piece together my experience. And when women ask me, I try to help them piece together their experience. And another thing is that I've discovered through being an intuitive guide and through being a muscle tester, kinesiology alternative practitioner, is that the medical field is constantly lying. Women are so confused. How can this be? It's almost like the medical field is the unchanging. They're not even thinking about questioning the doctor. They're questioning the medical field. They're questioning themselves, and they're questioning everybody else around them, and they're questioning their bodies and mistrusting intuition or anything that's connected to that. But the doctor remains the unchanging. Oh no, he's trustworthy, or no, he seems nice, or she seems nice, And I just want to say that one of the archetypes that is there to teach us, one of the symbols that is there to teach us in many stories, and then in many realities, is that there are many wolves. Wolves, in the symbol of the wolf in this case, is not a good thing. Dressed in sheep's clothing. Or in the case of the story of Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf has gobbled up the grandmother. The grandmother is the old wise consciousness, and the wolf went and gobbled her up because Little Red Riding Hood, who represents women who are coming now, who are being born now, who are growing now, told the wolf everything out of naivete. And she didn't listen to her mother, who represents the guidance. There's the present wisdom. The grandmother represents that old ancient wisdom. The mother represents the present wisdom that's growing alongside the girl, and Little Red Riding Hood didn't listen to her mother. She veered off the path. She told the wolf where the grandmother lived. The wolf went and gobbled up the grandmother, and eventually gobbled up Little Red Riding Hood. And so the symbolism and all that, is and the wolf dressed up as the grandmother. How many wolves dressed up in grandmothers do we have? A lot. More than not. There needs to be this paradigm shift of Little Red Riding Hoods, who are women, who are wearing the red which represents the womb, represents life, the blood of life, who are wearing the red, the sacredness of the red, to realize that there's a path, and that path leads to that wisdom, the grandmother, who leads that wisdom. And we need to heed the warnings, of our experiences. We need to be aware and realize that there are wolves on the path who want to know our information. And then we may tell them the information, and then they go and gobble up the grandmother, and then they dress up in the grandmother's clothing, and then so you think that they are the grandmother, but then you get eaten as well. I can't tell you how many women have been broken. I've seen just broken from trusting over and over again the wolf, dressed up in the grandmother's clothing. And a lot of times it is manifested through going to the medical field, but it's not just going to the medical field. It's going to the medical field just because that's what you do in this society, not because you feel intuitively that that's what you should do, not because you have tapped in, you've checked in with yourself, with your God, your love, your gut, your higher self, whatever. You've checked in carefully and you're going to go because you feel like that's the right thing to do. You're just going because that's what mainstream is doing. That's what everyone's doing. Everyone goes to the wolf, to get checked, and sometimes the wolf lets you go, sometimes the wolf gobbles you up, and a lot of times the wolf in the grandmother's clothing is not questioned. That's like the constant in many women's life. They hang on to that as the constant. But they'll go and they'll question everything else. They'll go and shoot down everything else. They'll shoot down themselves. They'll shoot down every time their consciousness tries to come up, tries to give them wisdom, tries to show them the way. I'm gonna shoot you down. No, you're contradicting the doctor. Don't contradict the doctor. They're not lying to me. They wouldn't lie to me. They have a freaking degree. Why would they lie to me? Okay. It's time. It's time, ladies, to realize that there are wolves out there. There are a lot of sharks out there. Whatever it is that you want, however it is you want to see it. And our intuition is the thing that we need to cultivate. We need to practice grounding first. Grounding. Maybe you can even just see that rope. Tie that rope. Just go through that movement every day. To tie that rope to that boat before you go diving. Before you go into life, and if you're experiencing a cryptic pregnancy, you are being asked. You're being asked by yourself, by the cosmos, by the world to dive deeper, to tap into deeper realms. And you can't do that without securing yourself. When you secure yourself, you're saying, okay, that's my intuition. There it is. That's my intuition. I rely on my intuition. And then there's a certain amount of trust that happens. That you trust in yourself, and you trust in the principles of the universe. The universe knows something. And what's so important when you're going through these pregnancies is that, okay, so you're going through this experience, and in my experience, 9 times out of 10, if a woman feels pregnant, she is. Whether or not that baby survives and she gets pregnant again, whatever, usually if you have symptoms, you are pregnant. And so there's a certain amount of trust that has to happen, between knowing that you're experiencing a pregnancy, perhaps an unusual kind of pregnancy. Although I don't really like to say that cryptic pregnancy is a kind of pregnancy. It's just pregnancy. It's just not what we understand necessarily. But you're experiencing pregnancy and in a realm that has not been charted yet. But it's not charted, it's neglected. Whenever it tries to come up for air, it's shot down again by women and men alike. And so there's this very important relationship between, okay, I'm experiencing pregnancy and I want the child to know that I'm here for myself, I'm here for them, At the same time, I am deeply trusting in this process, and I am checking in with my intuition all the time. So I can cultivate it, so I can start to develop that muscle more, not neglect that muscle, that essential muscle. If you don't cultivate your intuition, then you're basically out, paddling in the ocean without anything. And that's not meant to be. You're supposed to be grounded. You're supposed to be tapped into the truth of yourself, the truth of your inner being. So I think that's what I wanted to say today. And I hope that everything I said was relatively clear. And I'm really inspired by all the people who came to see my other video. I hope that it helped many of you. And all I can say is that I just jumping in here and knowing that I can make a difference now, not waiting for other things to happen, whether, making more professional videos or, having more experience or whatever, but it's just jumping in and just sharing with you my experience is exactly what I'm about. And what I feel storytelling is about. Sharing experiences, sharing whether they're fairy tales or whether they're your experience. Ultimately, all of my pregnancies, it came from other women's stories. That my power, my inspiration for my own power, my tapping into my own power came from other women's experiences. Whether I read dozens of them in a book, or if I talked to women online, if I met women, just happened to meet women. I don't think it's a coincidence, who had, similar experiences to mine, and just never had a chance to tell anyone, never told anyone, never had the space to tell anyone, never had any kind of affirmation from anyone, so they felt like they couldn't affirm it themselves. The gathering of stories, the gathering of experience is going to be worth more than any degree. And I can tell you that from my own experience. Any medical degree that's posted on a wall. The question is, that doctor, is that person willing also to listen to stories and experience, to tap into their own intuition? That's the question. Not whether or not they have a medical degree. Not whether or not they can write that they have certain experience on paper. The question is going to be an intangible one. And the only way that you can touch it is if you've touched that intangible, powerful reality in yourself. So, thanks so much for listening today, and hopefully I'll get around to getting another video made. So, take care, mamas. Blessings on you. Love to you. And hang in there.